All right, we're live. Welcome to the Writer's Life, place to get the sights, sounds, smells, tastes of my particular writer's life, where you get the truth about the writer's life. My truth, Larry. And where you also get Larry Kelter, not to be confused with Jim Keltner, who played drums with just about all the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are still alive. Larry's a musician. He plays guitar. And he's in a Beatles tribute band that's appearing this week in Newark, New Jersey. So buy tickets now because it's about to sell out. You'll get the link below for that. No, I'm bullshitting you guys. Maybe you do play the Beatles tribute. I don't know.
No, I don't.
All right.
Yeah.
But Larry, I've been watching Larry's career for a long time because our careers have sort of like gone up the ladder together. And I don't know how you pulled this off, but he wrote the sequel to My Cousin Vinny, and it's Hollywood sanctioned, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting story. I mean, I love the movie. You know, I'm from Brooklyn originally. I know a lot of guys like Vinny Gambini when I growing up, and
right. You blend.
Yeah, you blend, right?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah, you blend.
And it's the kind of movie that you just if you're doing something and you hear their voices in the background, you got to sit down and watch. And
right.
Actually, it's the most rewatched movie of all time.
I bet. I remember when it came out. My then wife and I didn't see it at the movie theater. We went to Blockbuster and we got the cassette. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene where the train whistle goes off and Joe Pesci turns around and he's just like, "What the fuck was that?" I can remember us like rewinding that and rewinding it and laughing so hard. It was just perfect. It was so perfect. And he's like, then they had breakfast and he's like, what's this stuff? He's like, it's grits.
Grits, right.
He's like, what the fuck is grits? By the way, Larry, I throw a lot of F-bombs in my show, so
that's okay. So I'm allowed 2 or 3?
You're allowed 2 or 3 or however much you want,
Okay.
But so now, are they going to make a movie of this for you? Did you sign an option?
From your mouth to God's ears. I mean, I had some conversations about it when the book was published a few years back.
Yeah.
And it all came circling back to, we're going to have to litigate with 20th Century Fox until the cows come home. And
right. We don't
know if it's worth it. And there was some scuttle in the Hollywood press that they wanted to revive the story and do a sequel, or if not a sequel, a remake. And actually was able to email Ralph Macchio, who's been very kind to me. And he said, I think it's a lot of smoke. He said, if it turns into anything real, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
He says, so you can pitch your ideas, but he doesn't really think there's any steam behind it.
Right. I can't imagine it without. First of all, you can't. You could never remake that movie. It's perfect, and without the Herman Munster guy either. What the hell was his name again?
Fred Gwynne.
Fred Gwynne, right? He was a smoker. Yeah. He was a big smoker.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how he died.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Character. Yeah.
Oh, he was great. What's a Ute?
That was spontaneous.
Was it really?
It wasn't written into the script. It was written as youths, and of course, Joe Pesci, coming from New Jersey, he said, Ute, and Fred Gwynne just picked up on it. And he goes, "What's a Ute?" And they just went with it. But it wasn't part of the original script or any of the rewrites.
No kidding. Yeah. No kidding. That's a gem to know. Wow.
Yeah, there's actually a pretty cool story. So, getting back to how I got the rights, I'm watching a movie one afternoon for like the 45th time. Because I was supposed to be going out to the movies or to dinner or something.
Right.
And you hear you hear Mona Lisa Vito say, yeah, can he treat you as a hostile witness? And he goes, you think I'm hostile now? Wait until we get home. Um, so you started watching, and after it's done, I said to my wife, I said, look, I've been watching this movie for over 20 years, and it gets better every time.
Right.
And it always seems new. I said, I don't know if I just have a bad memory or it's just that good.
Right.
Um, so I said, let me give the writer a pat on the back. I said,
Right.
it's been two decades since the movie's released. He's probably not exactly, a hot property anymore.
Right.
So somehow I dug up his email and I wrote him a letter, just saying, 20 years later, I'm still laughing my ass off at your movie. You did a massive job on this. I figured I'm never going to hear back. I figured, I'm a guy. I was in New York at the time. I'm a New York, midlist author, and he's Hollywood. He's going to say,
Right. Yeah.
thanks, but no, Anyway, he
Right.
writes back a tome in like 20 minutes.
Wow.
Basically, everything that's been going on in his life for 20 years. And he's working on a new screenplay, and he's always wanted Vinny and Lisa to have more of a career.
Right.
Uh, sort of like a modern day Nick and Nora, where
Right.
Lisa would do the investigation, he'd do the litigation, and
Right.
we started talking. And after a while, he said, would you consider writing it, as a literary
Wow.
series? Yeah, and uh, where do we go from there? Oh, so he said, look, I read a couple of your books, and you're pretty funny, so let's talk to the lawyers. So then, I hired a
Yeah.
lawyer. He had a lawyer, of course. 20th Century Fox had two lawyers, so yeah, they went to town on each other when he finally came up with an agreement that worked for all of us.
So I'm assuming you have probably another one coming out.
I did three altogether.
Oh,
I
you've done three altogether. Okay.
Yeah, I did a novelization of the movie, which is basically
I'm supposed to know that, folks.
the novelization is a rehash with additional scenes and some background information that you wouldn't know about the movie. And then there's Back to Brooklyn, which is the sequel. Um,
There it is.
it's a
Yep.
big book. And then we did a third one, and it's an interesting story. I wrote the third manuscript, and I sent it to him for approval, and he approved it. And then he called me back, and he said, "Oh, I've got some interest in doing a Broadway musical," and and that third book is sort of like an amalgamation of some of his ideas. He said, "So I don't want you to publish that book because I don't want anything to spoil the Broadway production."
Right. Right.
Well,
Right.
anyway, the Broadway production never came to be, or it's on the log pile somewhere.
Right.
And I had to write a new story for the third book, and we kind of froze it after that. So there's three books, and I'm very happy with those.
Right. So amazing, this business, isn't it? Like you get a call from Hollywood one day, and like we got a bite, like whatever, and need a one sheet real fast, and and like be around, and crickets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I used to get so excited, like when when the agent would say that, or whatever, and now I don't even.
I know.
It goes in one ear out the other, like and even then, until I see a contract or something,
You get
it's
so
just.
many calls these days, and in half of them, you just sit there and try to figure out what kind of scam is this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll get, and I'm sure you do too. I'll get like an email, which is always a tip off,
Right.
and run it through chat, and they're like, "No, it's a scam," like or whatever. Or I'll get the call or whatever, or my agent will get the call. When the agent gets the call, okay, it's probably legit.
Right.
But I think at one point I had the remains.
Mm-hmm.
Was we had the paperwork being worked up by Icon,
Mm-hmm.
Mel Gibson's company. We weren't. None of us talked to Mel, but we talked to his person,
Right.
like his girl, and I remember talking to my then agent, and this is like 3 years ago, and he's like, "Yeah, it's Friday. We got the paperwork. We'll talk to them Monday, and we'll sign it." And he was even discussing like the levels that we have to go through,
Mm-hmm.
towards production and all that shit. And I'm like, wow, we're finally going to do this. And we were talking money. And Monday he calls and he's like, oh, well, the deal's dead because our person quit Icon.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. That deal.
Sorry about that.
That's what happens. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like water off a duck's back. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I think in this business you really have to have such a tough skin because along with the few accolades that people really strive for, there's just so much rejection and so much hurtfulness out there. So.
No matter how accomplished you get and how much money you've made or didn't make, it's never what you've done. It's always what are you doing now?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, I got to plug this before, just in case there's a nuclear explosion or something.
Okay.
Larry, we're proud to have Larry in True Pulp, our first anthology that's coming out. The Kickstarter version will come out like in late August, and then a version. The Kickstarter has like a limited edition cover, and then in September, I believe, like the True Book will come out, the ebook, and then in October, I believe the paper will come out and the audio, something like that. So right now there'll be a link below for not only for Larry's website but also for the True Pulp anthology. It'll be the Kickstarter connection. So we only have 9 days left. We are well over 200% funded. Mm-hmm. So there are some beautiful limited edition collector's items there. So take advantage of it now. And I'm just going to plug a second thing. My Kickstarter for Chase Baker and the Nazi Time Machine
mm-hmm.
I'll be starting to plug that as soon as this one's over. And that'll start August 1st. And it'll run for like 3 weeks. So, right. And if you don't participate in it, I'm going to be really mad.
Yeah. Chase Baker's been phenomenally successful for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's my meal ticket, dude. That I'd like to say everybody thinks Dick Moonlight is, but it's not. Dick Moonlight has a even though it won all those awards, it has a niche audience. But Chase Baker's has a wide appeal. It's the one book that like you could be in an airport and somebody will be like, "Oh, I read all the Chase Bakers," or whatever. It's a popular, action, adventure, romance, right. Popular genres or whatever. And whereas the Dick Moonlights are noir, and not everybody's into dark noir stuff. I know that's redundant, but I love writing it, and I know you do too. But when did you start? Did you go to college for something else, or were you a writer right from the get-go? Larry was born in Brooklyn, by the way, which is cool.
Brooklyn, yeah. No, I went to college for something else. I went to college. My initial thought was to be a doctor, and after the first chemistry class, I realized that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I sucked at chemistry too.
Yeah, and it was incredibly difficult. I had in Brooklyn College, which at the time was basically free tuition. I was in a lecture hall with 300 other kids and a European professor who couldn't speak any English.
Oh, great.
So, you'd start off and say, today we're going to learn about reduction oxidation. We're going to mix the aluminum with the water. I was lost already, first day.
Right, yeah,
so no,
I know that feeling.
I didn't get a degree in literature. I did take some English classes that I was very happy with and enjoyed. And I always wanted to write. It just, life got in the way,
Right.
Mortgages, kids, that kind of stuff. And,
right.
Yeah.
I remember I graduated from Providence College in '86.
Right.
But my freshman year, my first semester, I majored in business because I was groomed for the construction business. My dad had a construction business.
Right.
And so I figured I had Easy Street ahead, to me, it was going to be Animal House the whole way. And it was. Mm-hmm. And so like Blutowski with the pencils in his nose, my first semester was, what was it? 3 Ds, and a WD. And I was like, oh, D's, all right. They weren't F's, because I didn't go to school. I was like, wait a minute. Like my parents dropped me off in Rhode Island at I'm meeting some really cool people, and all we're doing is drinking beers and watching the Twilight Zone. I'm like, this is heaven. Like what? Sleep till like 5. Like get up so that you wouldn't make breakfast, but you would like you'd be like the last minute to make lunch, and that would be your breakfast. And I'm like, should I go to class? Then after you miss a certain amount of classes, you're just like, well, fuck it at this point. So I had to, but my parents were like, when the report card came in, if you want to recall that, I'll never forget it. They were like, well, I thought they'd be mad. I thought they'd be angry, right? And they're like, because I'm home for Christmas vacation, right? And they're like, well, if you flunk out, you got to go to work. You just got to go to work. We're not going to help you get into another school because you have to go to work. And I was like, that was like, so I remember I went back to school and I switched my major to sociology, which was one of the easiest majors you could have, like next to ceramics or something like that, right?
Okay.
And so like the next semester I got like 4 A's, and like boosted my cum to like a C-, and then I kept boosting my cum a little bit more and a little bit more, and and I was like, okay, good, because I kind of realized that like college was a privilege, and it was you don't want to lose the privilege because it's the best time you're ever going to have, and so anyway, that's my college. Then I went to grad school for writing, and I took that seriously, even though there was a lot of imbibing going on for sure.
I took one sociology class in college, and the instructor comes in the first day. He's wearing a sharkskin suit, right, and button-down collar and tie, the whole works. And he starts talking to the class, which is like a 2-hour class. By the end of the 2 hours, this guy is sweating through his suit. He was so nervous. The whole suit was from silver to black. And
oh my God.
I remember we had a break for, I don't know, one of the holidays, and he came back and he shaved off this massive beard, and he's standing up in front of the class. We didn't know he was there.
Right.
We didn't recognize him.
Right. Do you still have family in Brooklyn?
Oh yeah. Well, not so much. No, not so much Brooklyn. I have some family in Queens. Long Island. Which is where I lived most of my life.
Yeah, I still say Brooklyn has, aside from Europe, I think New York City has the best food in the world, hands down. Right. But I think Brooklyn has even better food, even better Italian food than New York City.
Yeah.
Next to like Rome or Florence or something like that. So you must have grown up with some excellent Italian food and Jewish food, which my second wife was Jewish, so my daughter's Jewish. And the only thing I really miss is the latkes and the brisket and all that stuff. I don't miss eating at 5 o'clock because for some reason it always had to be like 5 o'clock. I eat at like 9, right? I eat my dinner at like 8:30 or 9, but I do miss the food.
Right. I get it. I get both of it. My wife's a great cook. She's Sicilian by heritage, and
she must be tough.
Yeah, she loves to cook. Plus, she gardens her own vegetables, and right now we have like this bumper crop of eggplant coming in. So I'm gonna be eating eggplant parmesan for the next 2 months.
Beautiful. Yeah. Larry lives in North Carolina now. In Asheville?
I'm sorry? No.
Are you in Asheville?
I'm in a place called High Point. It's smack dab between Greensboro and Winston-Salem.
Okay.
And my son and my grandkids are down here. So.
Okay. Oh, so you got the whole gang.
Yeah, the whole mishpacha.
Yeah, the whole mishpacha. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's we are the world, it's just beautiful. What are you working on now, Larry?
I just sent a manuscript into Level Best Books. It's called Freefall, and I'm
All
kind of
right.
excited
I
about
like
it.
it.
Yeah, it's a new character. It's about a kid who's like 20 feet from famous. He's a rock guitar phenom, and he's working backstage at the RKO Theater in the 1970s, and he's getting looks, right? It's
Yeah.
Murray Kay's Music in the Fifth Dimension tour, which was a real event.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's getting looks from Pete Townsend and Eric Clapton, and
Oh, no kidding.
he starts to really get immersed in the rock scene in New York in the '70s. I mean, it was like a party, right? You hear a good musician, you invite him down,
Right.
and he's really starting to gather momentum. And bam, he gets drafted, goes to Vietnam, and takes his career in an entirely different direction. So it's the first of a series, and like I said, I just sent in the manuscript, so I have high hopes for it. I think it's kind of exciting.
Sounds terrific. So this one's serious.
Yeah, it's serious. All
I
my
mean, it
books
probably has
with
your humor in it, but
yeah, right.
see if you can't get Tim O'Brien to endorse it.
Don't know. But
Yeah.
I've been lucky with endorsements, so I can't really complain. I've gotten some nice plugs from
Yeah.
some
Nelson
decent heavy
DeMille.
hitters. Nelson
Yeah.
DeMille's been was a real peach of a guy for me. He actually took my first manuscript and went through it. He didn't type. He wrote all his manuscripts longhand,
Right.
and I sent him 300 pages of paper, and he picked up a pencil and he went through it and he made
Wow.
edits for me. You
Wow.
know, and I mean, he's not exactly a lightweight guy. I mean, he's
No, it's one
you
of
know
the biggies.
one of the biggies. Yeah, he's a swell guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggies, the likes of we probably won't ever see again. The only guy I can think of really who has that sort of 20th century fame, like who's about our age, I would say, would be Harlan, really
Hmm.
Harlan Coben a little
Right.
bit, but and he's been in the game for 30 years, so
Right.
uh, um, a couple others, Don Winslow, maybe not quite as much though, not quite as
Mhm.
visible as Harlan Coben,
Yeah.
but that kind of thing has kind of become a thing of the past because everybody now has, and we talk about this often. Troy Lambert and I talk about this a lot. How
Right.
like Larry Keltner's business, writing business, is separate from mine. My business is a whole different entity. Even though we do the same thing, and we write books for a lot of the same people. I have my business. Larry has his, and so Troy Lambert has his, and
Right.
John Hemingway has his, and whatever. And you can create your own model, and you don't, instead of the way it used to be, we all used to have to write those query letters and send them into
Hmm.
to whatever agent, and the agent would talk to the same 10 editors, and you all were trying to vie for a spot there,
Right.
and it's so different now. It's not, if Level Best went out of business tomorrow, you wouldn't skip a beat. You'd be like, all right, you know what? I'll either send it to another publisher or I'll put it out on my own label,
Right.
and probably make more money.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you and I are similar in that way. It's that you work with some traditional houses, you publish some on your own, and
Right.
like you said,
Hybrid publishing. Yep.
yeah, hybrid, and it's the stuff you publish on your own is where you make all the money.
Yes,
Uh,
it is.
I mean, when I meet people, they say, "Oh, my cousin Vinny," they want to know all about it. But I've made most of my money writing Stephanie Chalisi,
Yep.
uh, hundreds of thousands of copies. So,
Yep. Yep. And the beautiful thing is, Larry, like I'm going to publish a thing probably this week. As soon as I get the professional cover back, it's just a short story. It's 6,000 words called The Television, right?
mhm.
And I'll immediately start making money from that, and I'll put out another one, uh, that's like a 30,000 word novella that no
Mhm.
publisher would take. No publisher's going to publish that. So
Right.
you have this freedom now where you can write what you want. The length can be whatever you want,
Right.
and you can just get it out there and start making money on it right away. And so, like, it's like I said, my last interview with Troy. Um, a lot of younger people now starting in the business have no idea the stress that you and I went through
Right.
years ago after we'd send a query letter out or we'd send a
Mhm.
book out. Like, is the agent going to like it, or am I going to get an agent for it? Are they
Right.
going to sell it? Am I going to be able to pay the mortgage in 3 months? Like this, the worry and the anxiety we had. It's amazing that we stuck it out,
Yeah.
for as long as
Yeah.
we did.
Mhm.
But a lot of that's gone now. A lot of that kind of anxiety is history.
Yeah. I mean, there's two sides of the coin. There's the anxiety, where, as you said, you can query and wait months for a response, and
Right.
you know. But then there was the other side of it, where the agents would actually groom a writer.
Right.
Um, One of the stories that Nelson DeMille told me is that when he was writing, initially he didn't publish under his own name. He had 7 different pseudonyms,
And mhm.
and his agent, the agent he was working with at the time said, "Let me give you an idea. Why don't you read every Ed McBain book you can get your hands on, and then start fresh?"
Right.
And I think that's what gave him the impetus to write By the Shores of Babylon or Cathedral or one of those early books that just
Right.
blew him up.
Yep. Yep.
So today they don't do that because they get so many queries and there's so
Yep.
many correspondence, all electronic, and it's
Yep.
like if they've got if they've got caviar, they'll take it. Anything else, they just they don't bother with anymore.
That's right. It's very true. I
Yeah.
have a brand new agent. She seems to be into, like, she's looking at my whole collection and she's like, wow, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Hmm.
This is what I'm going to do for you. Like a lot of licensing. She's into licensing and I like that.
Right.
And she actually did a deb edit on the new book, which I haven't had an agent do in years.
What did you do?
She did a deb edit,
Okay.
and um, I had I hadn't had an agent do that in years. It was just like I'd hand it off to them and they'd send it. Probably didn't even read it,
Right.
just send it out. But so I'm like, well, okay, maybe it's a little bit of a return to the past. Like,
Hmm.
see how this works out. I
Right.
don't know if it's going to work out, but we'll see. In any case, Larry, it's been great, brother. So happy to have you as a part of the True Pulp anthology. And just to let you know, the next one will be True Romance. In the um, like the who am I thinking of? Who filmed Pulp Fiction? Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
In the
Hmm.
Tarantino sense of the True Pulp or True Romance.
Okay.
I think I like fumbled my way through that. But in any case, Larry Kellner, thanks for coming on, and hope to see you again, man. You want to come on again?
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling you're gonna get a call one day about my cousin Vinny, and they're gonna want to do a Netflix series. I just do. I just have this feeling. I really do.
Okay.
A
Well,
lot of opportunities out there for stuff like that.
let's hope. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
mean, you get the right cast. I mean, it could be like I'd watch it. I'd be all over it. Who wouldn't want to watch that?
I know. I mean, as far as book sales, the 3 I wrote under the My Cousin Vinny umbrella. Um, I mean, I consider myself an ebook author. I probably sell 90% of my books
Same to
electronically.
me. Yeah,
But
sure.
Vinny, people just buy the hard copies, which
Oh, that's
is
interesting.
yeah. I think they want to give them away as gifts or they want to keep it in
Right,
the
right,
library.
right,
And,
right.
yeah, it's been good.
That's a good sign. All right, you guys. With that, thanks for showing up. And again, all the links will be below. And Larry Keltner, ciao, ciao. Everybody else, ciao, ciao.
All right. Thanks a bunch.